Welcome, dear viewers. For more exclusive, thrilling stories, subscribe my YouTube channel. Sit back, relax, and sip your coffee. I didn't ask for reassignment. Hell, I'd barely been on the job a year before the transfer notice came through. One moment I was monitoring border surveillance drones in a climate-controlled base just outside of Nevada, and the next I was being airlifted to an isolated outpost no one had ever mentioned, Watchtower Station 79. Even the name felt off. Not base, not tower, not outpost. Just Watchtower. It sounded like something from an old fairy tale, the kind with too much silence and too many eyes in the dark. The chopper dropped me in a clearing surrounded by dense alpine woods. The air was thinner here. Clean but strange, like it had been untouched for too long. At the center of the clearing stood the Watchtower, a tall, rusted structure that looked equal parts radio tower and Cold War bunker. Concrete base. Spiral metal staircase wrapping around the outside. And at the top, a glass enclosure with antennas jutting into the sky like broken teeth. I should have turned around then. But I didn't. They told me I'd be replacing Lieutenant Carson, who had apparently retired early. No ceremony. No debrief. Just packed up and disappeared. I found his logbook in a drawer upstairs, but the last 10 pages had been ripped out. The rest of the entries were brief and unhelpful. Routine scan. All clear. Night interference again. Chalk it up to weather. Shift partner acting strange. That last line was circled 3 times. The station was outfitted with a basic cot, food rations, radio equipment, a thermal scanner, and an old analog screen that flickered when turned on. Every evening it displayed a topographical map of the region in neon green, trees, hills, and dots that marked something. I assumed wildlife. That was my job after all. Watch the wilderness. Track heat signatures. Report anomalies. But my first night on shift, I realized something wasn't right. The clock hit 2,100 hours and the console lit up on its own. A low whine filled the room. Static bled through the radio for 5 full minutes before a voice broke through. But it wasn't a call sign. Not even a message. It was breathing. Slow. Raspy. Deep enough to rattle the glass. I tried to respond. Standard protocol. This is Station 79. Identify. Silence. Then a low chuckle. New eyes, it said. We'll see how long they last. I shut off the radio. By midnight the scanner started pinging. Movement on the West Ridge, too fast for deer, too erratic for bears. I zoomed in. The dots on the screen weren't animals. They were circling the Watchtower. 3. Then 5. Then 12. I peered out the window with my night vision binoculars. Nothing but trees swaying in the wind. But I felt them. Eyes watching me from below. And that's when the second chair in the room creaked. I spun around. It was empty. At least I thought it was. The chair rocked slightly as if someone had just stood up. Cold air brushed the back of my neck. I turned back to the scanner. The dots were gone. All of them. Like they'd never been there. At 0400 hours, the door at the base of the tower slammed shut. No footsteps. No climbing. Just slam. And then silence. The rest of the shift passed with no further incidents. But I didn't sleep. At dawn I called into Central Command. Station 79. Requesting backup. Possible breach last night. There was a pause. Then a flat voice responded. Negative. All quiet. Maintain position. Begin next shift at 2,100 hours. I pressed further. There was movement around the perimeter. Unknown figures. Unauthorized transmission. The response came colder this time. Do not engage with the night shift. Repeat, do not engage. Observe only. The line went dead. No confirmation. No backup. Just that phrase again. Do not engage. Later that afternoon I wandered the tower. The metal creaked under my boots, the wind howling around the structure like a living thing. On the top level, tucked behind the emergency generator, I found a duffel bag half covered in dust. Carson's name tag was stitched into the side. Inside, a journal. Not the official logbook. Something personal. Its pages were filled with frantic scribbles and increasingly erratic handwriting. They don't like being seen. They wear our faces now. One of them came up the stairs. I pretended to be asleep. I think I saw myself leave this morning, but I'm still here. The last entry was written in what looked like dried blood. If you're reading this, don't stay 5 nights. Don't make it to the 5th shift. That's when they take over. I closed the journal. Then I looked up. In the reflection of the generator casing, I saw someone standing behind me. I turned. No one there. But a boot print I hadn't made was imprinted in the dust beside me. That night, I didn't even bother trying to contact Central. The screen came on again at exactly 2100 hours. This time, the dots weren't around the perimeter. They were inside the tower. One on each floor. Moving upward. Slowly. One dot stopped at the cot level. The other passed the stairwell. One stopped just below me. I reached for the sidearm they'd issued. Standard issue M9. I pointed it at the door. It opened by itself. No wind. No footsteps. Just open. But no one came through. Instead, the scanner went black. The radio turned on again, but this time the voice was mine. Not like mine. Was mine. Repeating words I hadn't said. I like the night shift. I like the silence. I like the way the sky turns black and the stars blink out one by one. I unplugged the radio. It kept speaking. I like wearing your skin. Then it stopped. I don't know what time I passed out. When I awoke, there was a note taped to the console. Handwritten. Neat. Unfamiliar. Night 1 complete. 4 more to go. Underneath it, someone had drawn an eye, wide open, jagged at the edges, bleeding from the corners. I stepped outside into the morning light. The forest was quiet. Too quiet. And in the distance, across the trees, I could see another watchover tower. Just like this one. Someone stood at the top, waving at me. I raised my binoculars. They were wearing my uniform. They had my face. And they didn't stop waving. Even after I turned away. I didn't leave the tower the next morning. I just sat there, staring at the spot where the figure with my face had waved at me. It hadn't moved. Not once. I thought maybe it was a hallucination or some cruel prank, but when I checked the binoculars again hours later, it was still there. Same expression. Same wave. Same cold eyes that seemed to stretch across the entire forest. When the sky turned a milky gray and the sun started its descent, I finally forced myself to move. I needed answers. I needed proof I wasn't losing my mind. I climbed down the tower for the first time since I arrived. The air outside felt heavier than it had the day before. Every step toward the treeline made my skin itch. I kept glancing behind me, half expecting to see a second version of myself trailing along in the shadows. Nothing followed. At least not that I could see. It took me an hour to reach the second tower, the one across the tree line. Same design. Same height. Same weird hum emanating from its core. The stairs had vines creeping up the bottom steps, like nature was trying to reclaim it. I called out. Hello? Anyone up there? No response. I climbed. Slowly. Every creak of the metal echoed like a warning. Halfway up, I found something odd. A blood-stained glove caught on a railing. It looked exactly like the ones in my own gear pack. At the top, I opened the hatch door. The tower was empty. No cot. No scanner. No personal effects. Just a mirror nailed to the far wall, tall and wide, framed in rusted metal. And in the reflection, I saw myself already standing inside the room. I jumped back, heart hammering. But when I looked around, no one. I turned back to the mirror. The figure still stood there, smiling this time. Then it tilted its head, like a dog observing prey, and raised its hand. It waved. I ran. Back at Station 79, night fell like a blackout curtain. I slammed the hatch, locked it, and wedged the generator against the door. The scanner activated again. Same green topography, same rhythmic beep. But something was different. Instead of dozens of heat signatures outside the tower, there was one. Directly behind me. I didn't turn. I couldn't. Then the screen started to flicker. The image glitched. Topography turned into static, then into a face. My face. Except its mouth had been torn wider, stretched into an impossible grin. It whispered through the screen. We don't like when you leave. The scanner shorted out with a bang. Sparks shot across the floor. I backed away and tripped over Carson's duffel bag. That's when I noticed something sticking out from underneath it. A second journal. Thinner. More torn. Scrawled in the same shaking handwriting. If you're seeing this, you've lasted longer than I did. The mirror towers show what's coming. They're not reflections. They're warnings. You're not alone on these shifts. The thing watching you wears your shape until it fits. On night 3 it speaks in your voice. On night 4 it climbs into your skin. The last line chilled me. By night 5, you won't know which version of you walked down the stairs. 2100 hours. The lights came on. The cot creaked again, but I didn't look. I kept my eyes on the scanner. It buzzed back to life, now displaying not just one tower but 2. Mine and the mirror one. And inside both towers, heat signatures lit up. One in each. 2 dots. 2 of me. And then the third dot appeared, climbing up toward me again. The radio flared to life. Not static this time. Words. "Why are you hiding from yourself, Lieutenant?" My own voice. "Don't you want to know how you'll end?" I unplugged it again. It kept talking. "I'm already inside." Then silence. I heard something scrape against the hatch below. A click. Like the lock being undone. I rushed down 2 levels, weapon drawn, heart pounding. I burst through the second-floor room where the bunks were. It was empty, except for a pair of boots placed neatly beside the bed. The same as mine. Still warm. The next morning, I woke in the corner of the station's observation deck. I don't remember falling asleep. The scanner was dark. The cot was empty. But the boots were gone. And on the window, something had been written in condensation. Shift 2 complete. 3 to go. Under it, another crudely drawn eye. This one was open wider, bleeding more. I radioed Central Command again. No answer. I didn't care. "This is Lieutenant Harris. Station 79. Something's wrong out here. I am requesting emergency evac. Immediate." Only static. Then a voice cut through, clear this time. Not mine. Not anyone's. Just a whisper. "There's no shift during the day, Lieutenant. But we watch you anyway." I dropped the radio. I tried to leave. Packed a bag. Descended the stairs. Made it as far as the base of the tower before I froze. Because the forest didn't look right anymore. Every tree was angled toward the Watchtower. Their trunks twisted unnaturally, like they'd bent overnight. The underbrush was silent. No birds. No insects. No wind. Then I noticed something else. At the edge of the clearing, 5 figures stood, watching. Their shapes were blurry at first, shifting slightly with every blink. All of them were me. Different uniforms. Different expressions. But undeniably, me. One of them waved. The same motion. The same dead eyes. I stepped back toward the tower. They didn't follow. They didn't need to. I knew they were already inside. I locked the hatch and sat against the wall until nightfall. As the scanner began to hum again, a shadow passed over the glass above me. I looked up and saw something crawl across the exterior of the tower, its movements spider-like, its limbs too long, too jointless. It stopped at the top window, pressed its face to the glass, and smiled with my mouth. The third night came with no warning, no sunset, no soft gradient of twilight. Just darkness. Like someone had pulled the switch on the sky. One moment the forest still held the warm glow of dusk, the next, it was swallowed whole. The scanner came on by itself this time, flashing red, then green, then settling into a low rhythmic pulse. There was a new dot on the map. Inside the tower. I hadn't heard the hatch. Hadn't heard the footsteps. But something was here. And then the generator cut out. The watchover dropped into complete silence. I lit the emergency lantern and scanned the room. Empty. I checked the stairwell. Nothing. I told myself it was a glitch. Maybe the scanner was faulty. Maybe I'd been cooped up in this steel coffin too long. Sleep deprived. Isolated. Losing grip. But then, from the cot behind me, I heard it exhale. A low, rattling sound like breath trying to remember how lungs work. I turned. Was lying there. Me. Shirt torn. Eyes stitched open with red thread. Skin waxy and half-drained of color. It didn't blink. Didn't move. Just stared. Then its mouth opened slowly, jaw unhinging far wider than mine ever could, and it whispered, "You're wasting time. You're wasting our time." It sat up. I stumbled back, grabbed the flare gun from the wall. Its head tilted. "You don't need that. You'll be one of us soon." I fired. The flare hit its chest and didn't burn. It just passed through like smoke. The thing collapsed into ash, dispersing into the air like fog. And from that fog something else formed. Another face. A third version of me, smiling this time. I ran to the hatch and locked it. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. The morning wasn't brighter. The sun had returned, but hazy, dull. More like a spotlight through smoked glass. I tried the radio again. This time, I didn't even bother calling Central. I tried every channel. Police. Forestry services. Private emergency lines. Every voice that came back was mine. One replayed on loop. "I see you. I'm beneath your skin now." Another whispered. "3 more nights. Then you're part of the shift." By noon, I decided to check the mirror tower again. I had to. I needed answers even if they were terrifying ones. The forest felt different this time, like it was watching me. The wind didn't move the trees but the shadows did. Constantly shifting even with no clouds above. Halfway to the tower, I heard footsteps behind me. I turned. No one. I kept walking. The steps followed. Each time I paused, they paused too, mimicking me. I broke into a sprint and didn't look back again until I reached the stairs. No one was there. Inside the mirror tower, the temperature dropped 20 degrees. Frost lined the window edges despite the summer heat outside. The mirror was still on the wall. But this time it wasn't a reflection. It was a live feed. The room it showed wasn't the one I stood in. It was mine, Station 79. And in that room, I was asleep on the cot. Except I hadn't left anyone there. I stepped closer and the feed changed. Now it showed a hallway, a long corridor with dozens of doors. Each one labeled with a number. The door at the far end slowly opened. Smoke poured out. And someone stepped through. Me. But stripped of all features. No eyes. No mouth. Just smooth flesh and a uniform soaked in something black. It lifted one hand and knocked on the glass. From the inside. Crack. A fissure split across the mirror's surface. I ran. Back at Station 79, the hatch had been opened. From the inside. I crept up, weapon ready. Every creak of the stairs felt like a countdown. When I reached the top, the room looked untouched, except for the scanner. It was on again but not showing any terrain. Just one word repeated over and over on screen. Mirror. 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 Then a loud beep. A new dot blinked to life on the map, within the scanner itself. I backed away slowly. Behind me, I heard my own voice whisper. Night 3 begins now. And the lights cut out again. I don't know how long I was trapped in the dark, but something kept tapping at the walls. Like it was inside the metal. Or inside my skull. Taps and patterns. Morse code? Or heartbeat? I crawled to the duffel, found the old journal and flipped to the back. There were pages I hadn't noticed before, charcoal sketches of faces malformed, stitched together. Each labeled. Version 1. Version 2. Version 3. The final one was labeled. Approved copy. It looked like me. But something about the eyes felt too exact. Too intentional. At the bottom of the page was a scribbled warning. One of these nights you won't be able to tell which one is really you. And neither will they. The one that remains is the one that passes the test. What test? I turned the page and something fell out. A photo. Torn at the edges. It showed 5 watchovers arranged in a wide circle, each with a figure standing in the top window. All the same man. Same stance. Same face. But only one of them had a shadow behind him. A tall, crooked figure with arms like branches and no face at all. I heard something speak from the scanner. 3 towers down. 2 remain. I hadn't left mine, but somehow it knew I'd been to the others. Will you watch yourself burn, Lieutenant? The scanner screen changed again, this time showing a live view of Station 79 from the outside. Someone stood on the top platform, wearing my uniform, looking right into the camera. Then he lifted something. A match. He struck it against the railing. We're just cleaning out the bad copies. The screen went black. Then the smoke alarm went off. I turned to see the cot engulfed in flames. But the fire wasn't spreading. It just hung there, motionless like a photo suspended in air. I waved my hand through it. My fingers burned. It was real. I stumbled back, crashed into the wall, and saw something reflected in the glass of the window. My reflection. It didn't match my movement. It smiled. And then it whispered through the glass. Don't fight it. You're becoming. I spent the rest of the night on the observation deck, eyes fixed on the horizon, gun in hand, waiting for something to crawl through the walls. By dawn, the fire was gone. No smoke. No ashes. Just a single sentence scratched into the steel floor by the cot. Tomorrow you forget who you are. I picked up the journal, flipped to the last blank page, and found my own handwriting. 3 down. 2 to go. If you're still here, ask yourself, who are you trying to save? And is it even you anymore? I woke up with dried blood on my pillow. It wasn't mine. There were no cuts. No injuries. But the stains were fresh. Still red in the center. And right beside it, neatly folded, was my old Forestry Academy uniform. The same one I'd thrown away years ago. I didn't put it there. I didn't even bring it with me. But something had. Tucked into the breast pocket was a note, written in the same blocky lettering as the others. Day 4, tune in. I stumbled to my feet and checked the scanner. Gone. The map had been wiped. No coordinates. No blinking lights. No messages. Just one static image, a tower on the edge of a ravine. Labeled simply, broadcast. Below it, a countdown had begun. 12 hours. and ticking down second by second. I didn't know what would happen when it reached 0, but I knew where I had to go. The broadcast tower wasn't on any of my maps, but the terrain was familiar. It sat beyond the restricted zone, deep into the area marked nesting range, entry prohibited. I packed lightly. Journal, knife, flares, water. The moment I stepped past the boundary line, the forest changed. The trees grew twisted, bark spiraled like they'd been spun on some giant lathe. Branches didn't reach upward but curled inward toward the trail. The air buzzed, static without a source, like the hum of old CRT screens pressed against your bones. After an hour of hiking, I passed what looked like an old ranger station. Burned down. Only the chimney and partial frame remained. On the walls, charred but legible, were rows of names carved in careful lines, each one followed by a number and a time. I scanned them. None of them had last names. Just labels. Candidate 17 to 3:16 a.m. Copy 4B, 11:27 p.m. Failed integration, 2:59 a.m. All the names stopped abruptly at one in fresh, clean handwriting. You? I didn't linger. The broadcast tower was not abandoned. Its spotlight rotated slowly even in the daylight, sweeping across a clearing of old satellite dishes like watchful eyes. The front door was ajar. Inside, the air smelled like burned plastic and mildew. Dust coated the console dials, but the main screen was alive. A live feed. Of me. Standing right there looking at the screen. Except in the video, I wasn't holding anything. My bag. My knife. My flares. All gone. I raised my hand. My reflection didn't move. Instead, it walked forward, toward the camera, face slowly distorting into a blank, stretched grin. Eyes bulging. Then it leaned close to the screen and whispered, "You are out of sync." The console powered down. Then back on. A robotic voice echoed from the speakers. "Manual overwrite required. Please confirm continuity." I didn't understand what that meant. The room flickered. I turned, and in the hallway leading back to the stairs I saw myself again. But younger. Maybe 20. Wide-eyed. Clean-shaven. The version of me that had first signed up for the Firewatch training program. He looked at me with something like pity. Then he opened his mouth, and a voice that wasn't mine came out. "Don't forget your reason for joining." He raised a hand and pointed out the window. At the far edge of the clearing stood a mirror. 10 feet tall. Freestanding. Waiting. I didn't want to go near it. But I didn't have a choice. The scanner in my pocket buzzed and showed one final prompt. Only the real you can shatter the reflection. The mirror stood on uneven ground. Its frame was made of antenna coils and wires. Dozens of old transmitters blinked at random along its edges. As I approached, the surface rippled. Then it stabilized, and there were 3 of me standing inside. All different ages. All wearing different uniforms. They each stepped forward. One whispered, "You regret the wrong decision." Another, "You fear becoming what you replaced." And the third, "You've already failed. You just haven't remembered yet." I picked up a stone and hurled it. The mirror didn't break. The oldest version of me smiled from inside and lifted something in his hand. A badge. Red. Approved copy, Station 0. The sky flashed red. Behind me, the tower broadcast sirens burst into life. Loud, discordant static echoed across the valley. The final part of the countdown reached 0. And everything stopped. No sound. No wind. Even the birds froze in mid-flight like puppets on strings. The mirror collapsed, not shattered, just folded into itself like paper, and from the ruins, a single door rose up from the earth. Rusted. With my name carved into the wood. And beneath it, a word. Integrate. I didn't want to open that door. But the scanner buzzed again, and this time it didn't show words or coordinates. It showed a face. My father. Smiling just for a second, then flickering out. He died years ago. Heart attack while working the very same towers. He trained me. He told me this job would reveal what I really am. I thought it was a metaphor. But what if it wasn't? What if this whole time, the job wasn't to watch for fires? It was to replace the ones who burned. I stepped through the door. And everything changed. Not in a sudden flash, but slowly. Like my bones remembered a shape I'd never been taught. Like my mind unlocked a language I didn't know I spoke. Voices flooded in. All mine. All variations of me across timelines and towers. One said, "You resisted longer than the others." Another whispered, "You're the strongest iteration. We knew you'd be the one." And then, "Now you must pass it on." I opened my eyes. And I was back in the watchover. Except it was clean. No. not a bolt out of place. A man stood in front of me. Confused. Younger. Bag over his shoulder. Forestry patch on his jacket. He looked at me and said, "Is this Station 79? They told me to report for the night shift." I smiled. Extended my hand. "Welcome. Don't worry, it's easy work. Just keep an eye on the sky." And in the reflection of the scanner screen I saw myself. But not quite. My face was the same. But my eyes? Empty. When I first took the job, I thought I was escaping something. A dead-end life. Grief. Boredom. Now I realize I wasn't running from anything. I was being pulled. The Watchtower wasn't a station. It was a beacon, a signal tower searching for compatible minds. Testing them. Wearing them down. Seeing who could carry the frequency. Now I was the one initiating the signal. And someone new had just arrived. The recruit's name was Eli. 25. Nervous but eager. He reminded me of myself, before everything broke. He didn't notice that the walls didn't rust, that the wood never aged, that the shadows cast by the station didn't shift with the sun. He didn't notice me watching him too closely. Or maybe he did. But he didn't say a word. On his second night, the scanner lit up for him, just as it had for me. He called out, "Hey, something's blinking. Do you want me to check the feed?" I smiled. Of course. That's part of the job. That night I walked outside and stared at the sky. I looked back. The stars moved, only slightly but enough. They weren't stars at all. Each one was a node. A mirror. A station like ours orbiting out in the endless black, watching us the same way we watched the forest. The scanner chimed. Inside, Eli was frozen at the console. The screen had shown him something. He didn't speak for a full minute. When he turned to me, his eyes were wide. "They're not human," he said quietly. I nodded. "No, they're not." He didn't ask who they were. He didn't need to. The silence said enough. He packed his bag that night. But I stopped him at the door. "Eli," I said, "what did the scanner show you?" He hesitated. Then said, "A fire. But not here. Not in the forest." "Where then?" He swallowed. "In the sky." I said nothing. He left anyway. But he didn't make it far. I watched him through the scope as he walked into the treeline. I wanted him to make it, truly. But the forest didn't let go of what the station marked. After a few minutes, the canopy swallowed him. The trees bent backward, forming unnatural arches, vines curling toward him like tendrils. And then he was gone. Not screaming. Not running. Just gone. The scanner went quiet. And for the first time I heard it. A signal. Not from this world. But from the ones we're echoed from. A voice, no words, just emotion. Cold. Purposeful. Endless. One successor identified. Continuity maintained. I wasn't relieved. I was horrified. Because I realized then. Eli hadn't failed. He had passed. The tower changed after that. The wood grain on the walls began pulsing, like veins. The radio whispered before I even turned it on. The mirror at the end of the hallway no longer showed me. It showed versions of me. Each one smiling wider than the last. Each one more distant from who I'd once been. One wore an oxygen mask. Another held a burned ranger's journal. A third, shaved bald, skin cracked like bark, stood motionless. Then a new one appeared. Eyes glowing with that same static shimmer I'd seen in the sky. He reached toward the glass. And the hallway filled with smoke. I don't sleep anymore. The tower doesn't allow it. Time doesn't flow here, not like it used to. The scanner still sends messages. But they're not coordinates. They're memories. Some mine. Some not. Some that haven't happened yet. I see myself walking through towns I've never been to. Standing at the foot of giant black statues in the woods. Sitting in a diner with a copy of myself across the booth. Talking to a child who looks just like me, but isn't. Each memory ends the same. The sky opens. And something steps through. Not a creature. A version. A refinement. A better, purer echo of what I was supposed to be. The final rule appeared today. Burned into the inside of the fireproof door I once locked every night. If they come to replace you, let them. I understand now. We're not alone. We were never alone. The stations are not to watch for fire. They're lures. Beacons to sift through the noise of humanity. To pluck out the few that can carry the signal forward. I carried it. Eli carries it now. But something newer is coming. I hear it in the wind. In the static. In the way the trees stop breathing when the signal pulses. The replacement is on its way. And I've prepared the watchover. I've stocked the rations. Lined up the journals. Repaired the scanner. Because when they arrive, I'll greet them, like I once was greeted, and I'll smile the way I've been taught, and I'll say, "Welcome to Station 79. The night shift's quiet. Just don't look up." And when they ask why, I'll simply answer, "Because the sky remembers what you were, before you ever got here." And then I'll step aside, because I won't need this body anymore, because my next version is ready. The end. Thanks for watching. Like, share and subscribe.